Hi guys, I'm ExactChaos and welcome back to another episode of Transport Planet Says. And in this episode, we are going to talk about roundabouts. So, I've seen a number of people suggesting roundabouts work much better than signalized intersections or four-way intersections or anything like that. And yes, I think to a certain extent there are obviously pros and cons of it all. So what we're going to do today is just going to run through a few of the basics of the roundabouts, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about City Skylines roundabouts versus what actually happens in reality and how roundabouts work in reality, to try and get you to better understand how roundabouts would work. So firstly, simulation paused at the moment. This is a standard roundabout. I haven't used the traffic manager president at all to tweak things. This is if I just did the kind of two-lane highway onto these boulevards. And first things first, without even running the simulation, or the simulations obviously run for a little bit, but without even running the simulation, first things first, you can see everybody is clamoring to get into the right-handmost lane. And the reason for that is the way pathing works in this game. So first things first, so regardless of where you want to go, the best place to be is in the outside lane, because whether you want to go here, outside lane is where you make the move. If you want to go there, outside lane is where you want to make the move. If you want to go there, outside lane. And so you will see very, very quickly that actually this two-lane roundabout functions as a one-lane roundabout. So that's without making any changes. So let's quickly run the simulation a little bit. Okay, as we run the simulation, the next thing I want to point out is if you look at this car over here, making the move regardless of the fact that oncoming traffic is happening, okay? So that's another thing, that if you just place a roundabout, it doesn't actually function like a roundabout. So what is the rule at a roundabout? Is like here, you as the car that wants to join the roundabout has to give way for vehicles that are already in the roundabout. So this guy right over here going in front of that, this guy too, that's wrong. That doesn't happen. Well, that's not supposed to happen in reality. Of course it happens, but that is not how it's supposed to work. So again, as you can see, outside lane only being used apart from the ambulance that has a different set of AI to kind of pass vehicles by, regardless of where he wants to go. Okay, so there you can see. So all of a sudden, so we're not getting a lot of traffic through this roundabout. Okay, even though it keeps moving. And it won't for a long time. At some point, it'll stop. It'll probably clog because there's some because the vehicles can't actually block this intersection, which is again wrong. Okay, so let me quickly explain that. So City Skylines have a function or an AI or a rule that vehicles cannot block this intersection. So that intersection or that intersection or that intersection. So we will very quickly see that that they leave this open. So really there's only like 4 or 5 car lengths of queuing over there, then that's open, then there's 5 car lengths over there, and then there's 5 cars, then there's 5 cars. So it only like keep 20 cars in the roundabout at any given time, because they don't even use the center and they don't use these sections over here. Okay, so then it'll clog up at some point because people want to go straight, and this guy wants to go straight, and that guy wants to go straight, and that guy wants to go straight, but he can't actually access, and then it'll gridlock the roundabout based on these rules. Okay, so now how do roundabouts work in reality? So if you want to implement a roundabout, what you should do is you should first things first use Traffic Manager President Edition, and then you should make this. You should put the priority controls on there. Okay, so that means yield control on the from the outside and priority on the inside. Okay, but that's not all. The next thing you have to do is you have to go to the junction restrictions, and you need to activate this thing. This means that the car can actually block the intersection. So what we'll do is from this direction we'll allow the car to block the intersection. That means the guys in the center will have the priority and they will keep going. So let's switch this off. Let's set the President Edition on going. So now you can see it won't actually gridlock now, but now you're getting a little bit more what happens in reality. If there's not a sufficient gap, you would be queuing. Okay, so now you will see why roundabouts are in fact less efficient than signalized intersections, because they do not provide sufficient movement here for access into, or sufficient gaps or access into the roundabout from all directions. If you've got traffic from all directions, it's a problem. If you've got cars going from the one side to the other side only, then you're going to have no problems whatsoever with the roundabout. Okay, so if you only have vehicles coming from here going through there, or from here going through here, or here to here, and here to here, if you only have certain directions, then a roundabout can work extremely well because there's no stopping. But as soon as you have vehicles from all directions going to all directions, this is what happens. You get a section like this that just almost never gets a gap. Okay, and when they get a gap, it's very minor. You see, very very long queues, a lot of stops there. This is how a roundabout functions in reality. Of course, now what you can do is you can tweak this. Let me try and represent a working roundabout. Actually, what I'm gonna do is, if we say, what I'm gonna try and do to replicate this, and I don't know if that's gonna work right here. So let's say for instance, we're gonna switch off these two sections. So let me take out a section there, and I'm taking out a section there. Okay, so now let's get these guys to go in there. So now those two will stop, and I'm sure we're gonna have people clogging up completely. So as soon as these clear, let's speed that up a little. Let's get these to clear quickly. See, it takes ages just for this little piece to do its thing over here. Oh, okay, get out of the way. So got a few that's still going in these directions. Okay, so that one's cleared. Now, hopefully this one will start clearing. Now you can see this one actually works very well because there's absolutely no one stopping it, right? Look at that. Look at that. That's a little funny. But see how good that works? So if you've only got one direction of heavy traffic and the rest is low traffic, right? This works extremely well. A roundabout works very well. See, it just keeps going and going regardless of what signals does. Okay, I'm going to put this back now so the whole city doesn't die. So let's add that in there. And I'm adding that in there, so I'll get that back. So we're going to see that traffic come back in very soon. Okay, so now the next thing is, now you can actually, in order to get your roundabout, I'm still saying that even though this is now working very quickly, we will quickly find as soon as these guys get back that it's going to start becoming more of a problem again. So these guys still don't get any of the, because they're just after this approach here, they get very little access there. So let's slow things down again. And see what we go. Okay, so now let's go back to Traffic Manager President and see what can we do to further improve the situation at a roundabout. Okay, so first things first, if we've got heavy movements, it is probably good for us to do that kind of arrangement. Okay, and if we do this, what's going to happen? These guys, and we're going to do that and that. So what we're saying is that if you want to go through, you have to come into this lane. So now what we'll do is we'll start seeing people using the inside lane of the roundabout, and that's going to help with the capacity as well. But what we'll see is that this will probably have to be tweaked from time to time in order for us to ensure that we're getting the right demands through. Okay, so if the demand to go through is bigger than the demand to turn right, this you probably want to swap these around and only have the one lane and the one lane. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start it out with doing this setup on all approaches, and then what we'll do is we'll have a little bit of a look to see what that does and whether we need to tweak it a little further. So really, in reality, you would want to tweak your roundabout setup to better accommodate what is actually required from your traffic. Okay, so you never ever want to have a right turn with a through there, because that is dangerous. Okay, so let's put this one in here, that one in there, also the through movement. So this is a roundabout will work quite well now, because these guys will almost constantly flow and only be, so these guys will only really give way to the guys in that lane. Okay, so it'll take a few ticks of the simulation just to get that in place, but immediately you're seeing a better use of this roundabout. Immediately you're seeing a better use. It's still not more efficient than what we can get a signal to be, but it is much better, much better. This is a roundabout pretty much how you would see it functioning in reality. So you need to tweak the roundabout, get the characteristic better. So you see this inside lane is now queuing a little bit because it still has to wait for the gap. But anybody in this right hand lane, they can get straight into the roundabout fairly quickly because they don't have to give way to a through movement also. So this is a pretty good, if you're building your roundabouts like this is about as efficient as you can get them, okay, as roundabouts. Now, if you find that you've got an approach, all of these other approaches seems to be working, right? We got people coming and coming and coming, but this guy is struggling tremendously to get there because they don't seem to want to go here. They seem to want to go straight or left, so they have to go into that lane. So if you have a situation like that where you see actually that's not working very well, now it starts to come time to actually signalize your roundabout to give these guys, all of the other guys are okay, but these guys are struggling. So what I would suggest is try experimenting a little bit with signaling a roundabout, or at least one of the approaches. So there we go. So that one is now signalized. So what will happen is, give it a few ticks of the simulation. Okay, so now these guys are going to get a gap. So yes, there'll be a little bit of a delay here, but hopefully this will flick over again at some point. And you can time it, of course. You can time it. And now this is running again. And now it's going to be smoothing. So signalizing a single approach of a roundabout is not a bad idea. So now what we've done is we've covered how roundabouts function, and now you know a little bit more about how it works. It's still not as efficient as a signalized intersection, and in one of the next episodes I will show you how an appropriately managed signalized intersection, timed traffic light, can get you much higher capacities than this. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you've liked it, hit that button, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and please leave comments. Ask me some questions. If you do you agree, don't you agree, and tell me what you think. Is there certain situations that you would like to talk about in terms of how roundabouts function? So see, this is not great given the signal, but it does improve the capacity. Give everybody a little bit of a go that in the past had some problems, but now you'll see that some of the other movements are starting to be problematic. So it's now this point in time where I would say, okay, let's move it on to a signalized intersection. But we'll do that in the next episode. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.